Today I'm painting with the Impressionist brush in Corel Painter 2019. Hi everyone, Steve Elliott here again. Today I am using the Impressionist brush in 2019 and I'm going to paint this landscape. I have to say that this video or this painting was done as a live stream, and if you want to see the full version unedited in real time, I'll put a link in the description below. This video, however, is for those people that prefer to watch the thing speeded up and cut out all of those boring bits. So I'm using a brush called the Oily Water Brush to get that really cool look on the first layer of the canvas there. And I've made a look because I wanted the brush to be really big. So the actual canvas size is 18 inch by 12 inch by 300 dpi, a bit smaller than I normally work on, but because this was a streaming video, I didn't want to sort of overload my PC because I got lots of other things running. I'd got an iPad plugged into it and running the software to do the streaming, so I went with a smaller canvas, although it still is a reasonable size. So I begin with this dirty oil turpentine, the oily water brush, and I get this colour layer on, and then I start messing about with a thick paintbrush, and it's not what I wanted at all, because I wanted to sort of merge these colours that on that canvas into the colours that I'm putting over it, and I wanted to leave areas lighter. So I use a brush called the Speckle Grainy Hard Drip brush, and that's what I'm using now. Actually, that's what I'm using now. I've just swapped over. I was using another brush that I didn't really like, and this is when I came to the Speckle Grainy Hard Drip brush. And I'm painting in these trees, as you can see, and I'm just sort of getting in local colour, and I'm trying to leave areas of this underpainting, this dirty oil colour, because I do want to use some of that in the finished painting. It doesn't like it's going to be in the sky though, does it? So I realise that I've got a tree line that's almost there's no breaks in it, or it doesn't look very natural, so I start to add a few breaks in there with the clouds. I'm putting in three I guess the conifer trees in the front, and then I use this lighter colour, this light green, for the light that's on the grass. I was going to call it a field. I don't know if it actually qualifies as a field, but on that bit of land in front of the trees. And then I start putting in all this algae and stuff that's on the water, leaving loads of that texture there because I want to be using that in the painting. I love the fact that I can, it's almost like using an iPad where you can hide all the tools. And I've just got that colour picker there, and here you can see I'm sort of sculpting into those trees and stopping them being all one level, if you like, sort of giving them a little bit more form and shape, making them a little bit more interesting. I put some those sort of light colours, sort of warm colours there, are three, I guess they're ash trees or something of that nature. Not too sure what's going off there. Now I'm using the Impressionist brush, and you saw that I did a little test there. And this brush, it's really quite cool because you sort of put the colour on, and it how can I describe it? It sort of randomly puts on half a dozen strokes. And in the live stream, I was discussing the fact that I would have probably thought this was cheating it when I first started using digital painting. I'm not so sure now, because I used to be a decorator and I was using lots of different types of brushes to get different effects, and one of them was something called a badger brush, and it was kind of this long, and it was that wide, and you'd actually it wasn't called a badger, it was called a flogger, and you would flog the paint, like sort of hit the wall like that with the paintbrush to get this stippled effect, not unlike what I'm achieving with this paintbrush. So there are paintbrushes out there to sort of emulate that effect, so why can't you do it digitally? That's the point I'm making there, and I think that I'm nowhere near as stressed about using unique brushes as I was a year ago to get sort of special effects. I'm not talking about where you can stamp a tree down or a line of trees or anything like that. I still think you need to paint them. I'm not sold that they are a good thing to be having in your arsenal. But if you look at those three conifers, you notice how they're all exactly the same height. That was something that I didn't spot straight away. Big mistake. You don't want it just all looks too uniform. The gap between them is the same. So I do go into changing that a little bit later on. And notice I've introduced some purple into the colour scheme there. And the idea for that was I wanted to get it to look darker. And if I kept going with the green, I'd have been nearly at black. And I certainly didn't want a black, any black at all in the painting. So by putting the purple in, that makes it appear darker and puts the shadows in, but still is a nice vibrant colour next to the green. So that's why I've picked up the purple in there. And as I use this brush, this Impressionist brush, I discovered that it wasn't just something that put random blobs of colour on the canvas. It does do that, and I said that it was like drawing when I'm scribbling in a sketch pad or something, and I just let the pen meander over the paper for some leaves or some rocks or something, and it's just a scribble. It felt like that because it was putting these random lines on there for the leaves and things, which I really like. But what was really cool about the brush was once I started to use it a bit, I realized it was really, really sensitive, and by putting very little pressure on it, it became a blending brush. You can see I'm doing that now on those leaves, those three light colored trees. I just changed the brush there back to the back to the speckle grainy hard drip brush, just to put in a few tree trunks on those trees. And you notice once you put in something that is recognizable, those shapes, those random shapes suddenly become trees because they've now got trunks on, which before they were just random shapes. Just warming up the colour a little bit there. Anyway, as I was saying about the Impressionist brush, it you could use it to soften and get these really subtle effects, which I really, really liked. And the more I was using it, the more impressed I became with it, and was liking the fact that you could blend with these with this brush. You could press on hard and get thick, not thick paint, but very dark paint, and all these random little strokes. Then you can take the pressure off and just soften them out. Really did like it, and the more I was using it, the more I got into it. Now, you saw a line down the screen there. I was pointing out that the left side of the painting looks like it's been painted by a different person than the right side. The right side's a lot softer, and that was because as I was discovering how to use the brush, when I got over to the right side, I was getting all this subtleness about it that I wasn't using initially in the left side. So now you can see I'm going back into that, and I'm working over it again and softening off some of those edges. And there you go. I've suddenly realised that the trees are all the same height. I've saved that for the very first time, which is a bit naughty really, considering I'm 3/4 of the way through the painting, and all of a sudden I decide that it needs saving. So anyway, I'm working on getting the left hand side of the painting matching the same style as the right, so it doesn't look like a different painter has done it, like a collaboration or something. Things that I'm noticing now that I didn't notice straight away. I'm just putting some highlights in there, a few of the sort of clumps of leaves that would be sticking forward and catching the light. You notice I put that on those trees, but there's a diagonal line coming down, a dark diagonal line coming below those white or light grey trees. That's really annoying me now because I'm very aware of it. I do sort that out shortly, but it is annoying me now because I know it's there and I see it. But obviously when you're working on a painting, you're looking at all over it, and somebody else could be looking at it, especially when you're doing a demo, and they might see that issue straight away, but I'm not even concentrating or looking at that at all. This brush was so good because you could like get detailing really fast just by a few strokes of that brush. Then here I decided I wanted to put some detail in these lighter coloured trees, and then I'm thinking, oh man, that ain't working, let's just take it out. I like them, I just like them as they are, I don't want anything else on there. So I'm going into the water, and I'm really loving this oily water effect on the bottom third of the painting, and I want to get the algae in, but I want to leave plenty of that shining through as part of the painting as well. I've got that sort of little bit of a bank there, just so the painting's not sort of split into two with the water going right the way across. And you notice I've got the top of the bank, it's light green against the dark green of the bank, the distant bank, and then when it comes down to the water I've changed it to dark green, so we've got sort of light against dark, then dark against light, sort of counterbalancing the colours and the light, the value, that's the right word, the value of that. And then I'm using that Impressionist brush to quickly flick in a few random grasses on that bank. Here we go. I've suddenly decided that that horizontal line was driving me crazy. So you see I've broken it up a little bit and I've changed the height of it in places. That looks way better. So now I can get back on with this water and putting in this algae. It looks like it could be lily pads, but I don't think it is. I think it's some sort of horrible green algae that's on the top of the water. But I painted this in so quick with this brush, it really did work well with this. What I will say is you'll notice that I've not used that Impressionist brush and covered the complete painting using that brush and having this sort of tiny little brush strokes over the old piece. I've used it sparingly and put it where the detail is, and still left lots of other areas that have clearly been painted with different types of brushes. That was a very conscious decision. I didn't want to just sort of make it look like a pointillism piece or something like that. So I'm just sort of finishing off now, going in, flicking in a few branches in trees, softening them out again. I decide that that bank is not quite right. I need to sort that out at some point. It sort of starts to rise up where it should be coming down. Got some highlights under that tree. That's sort of makes them pop a little bit. So yeah, that is it. That is the end of my live stream using the Impressionist brush in Corel Painter 2019. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, a big thumbs up as always is much appreciated. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, because I have lots of videos like this and I would love to be sharing them with you. So hopefully I will see you all in the next one. Bye!